Do you view the holiday season as a time of joy or as a time to dread? Well, we'll discuss how we can stay balanced and deal with the stresses holidays bring on Talking with Henrietta, coming up next. Hi, I'm Henrietta. Welcome to the show. Who doesn't enjoy major holiday celebrations like Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and New Year's? Well, these very special occasions can be a time of joy, but also a time of stress, loneliness, and heartbreak for many people. What are they for you? On this edition of Talking with Henrietta, I'll speak with three guests who work to bring a sense of balance and healing to the clients they serve. To my left is Lusia Hollowell, who is a social worker at Mission Hospice, a nonprofit organization in the city of San Mateo. Ms. Hollowell works with patients and families at the very end of life, providing emotional support and resources. Sharla Kibel, seated to my immediate right, is a marriage and family therapist who works for the Santa Clara County Behavioral Health Department. She has worked with the county for 30 years and is a seasoned clinician who provides training nationally. She's very knowledgeable about crises and trauma. She specializes in early childhood mental health. Seated to my far right is Dr. Mary Bains. Dr. Bains is an author and a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's also a psychologist who specializes in coaching and assisting individuals in achieving wholeness, happiness, productivity, and peace. Now I can clear my throat, do you think? Thank you so much for being with me. It's a delight to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
Why is it that the holidays, and it might be obvious for many people, can be a time of heartbreak, loneliness, stress?
It could be your frame of reference, what your experience is with the holidays. Some of us have joyful experiences and joyful memories, and some of us have time of tragedy and not so fond memories to recall during that time. And there's the pressure of 'tis the season to be jolly. There's that added pressure there, and you're supposed to feel happy and you're supposed to feel joyful. And some people don't have a happy and joyful recollection of their past. And so recognizing and embracing and understanding what your frame of reference is and what your past experiences have been is helpful in making you feel better.
So for Lucia, is it a matter of recollections in your experience?
It can be, but I think it's also the busyness of the season. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of gifts to buy, and there's also the expectations of buying the perfect gift and doing everything. And as we know, you can't do everything. It's impossible. So I think finding ways to delegate some of those tasks and being a little bit flexible with our expectations of the holiday, but also of ourselves, is really important during the season.
Yes.
Dealing with, I'm so sorry, Sharla. Yeah. Well, you were going to say, Mary?
Well, you had a perfect experience of delegation or being accepting today with your vegetables that you purchased at Whole Foods, right, for your event, and let that be that, and that was okay, and that lessened your stress, right?
Sharla.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. What would you add, or what would you subtract?
Well, I think the expectations we carry can set us up to be more than usually disappointed or more than usually hopeful. We're at a time when families are spread out, and we really hope that when we come together, it'll be happy and connected and joyful. And yet sometimes old feelings that aren't so beautiful and comfortable come through, you know, when we're around people we haven't been with
So,
in,
you know,
in recent times.
when I did some research for the show, I came across putting in Joyful Holiday. I came across, it's amazing how many references to holidays and dysfunctional families. And how you can deal with those
Right.
dysfunctional families. And
Well,
so why do you think the emphasis?
Well, I like to put the fun in dysfunctional.
Ah.
But I really do validate that coming together with family, there are those old rules and patterns and behaviors, and there can be conflict. So that can be one of the stresses of the holidays. Another aspect that you got at was the loneliness. And I often think of people that are grieving during the holidays, that they can feel their grief even more intensely. For some folks that have lost loved ones throughout the year, the holidays, this may be the first holiday season where they're not with their loved one, and so they can feel that very intensely. And it's not that they're going back on their grief. This is a new cycle or new season. So to be aware of that. Others cannot be with families. We are very spread out. And so part of the season is sort of reconciling being lonely, or the difference between being lonely and being okay with being alone. And there's a real difference. And to be clear, you can feel lonely in a crowd of people. So I think there's a lot of sort of things that people are dealing with underneath these masks that they wear, and also behind the expectations of we're just joyous and there's holiday music blasting everywhere. That may not represent the true feelings of a lot of folks.
In fact, I'm thinking that holiday music blasting everywhere could intensify those feelings of being alone, or those feelings of not being a part of the holiday because of the expectations, the societal expectations that are put on people.
Well, I think parents feel a lot of pressure to give the perfect gift to children, there's a bombardment of ads and commercials, and what your holiday won't be right if you don't get your child this gift. And I talk with parents about how you are your child's best toy. The time parents spend with children, the space they create together is going to create the memories way more than any particular parcel. In fact, we talk about how for toddlers the boxes are much more interesting than what's inside them.
Yes,
So,
but will the children, maybe years later, they'll appreciate their parents, but at that moment, will they think of their parents as their best toy?
If they're getting focused, thoughtful attention, yes.
And not a disappointment that Santa didn't bring them a specific gift?
Well, managing expectations of children is an art.
Yes, it is.
And every family has their own traditions and expectations and assumptions about what will happen. But often if your parent is so stressed out by the season, you have less of your parent, when ideally you want more.
Well, you might have toys.
And you want to focus on reducing the stress at a holiday period, and recognizing and understanding that that is stress, and that there are things that you can do to help reduce anxiety and reduce stress. Just be accepting. If there's someone talked about difficulties at the time, or family differences and the conflicts that may arise out of that, well, make a truce for the holiday at that time to put those differences aside for this particular
Do you make
season.
a truce with other people, or you make the truce with yourself?
You do both. You do both. You
You
make
sort
the
of need both, huh?
yes. You need
And
both.
so how do you make that truce?
You agree to disagree, and you say, okay, the holidays are here, and we want to have a good time at this holiday. So can we put our differences aside just for the
And
few
if they
days?
say no? I mean, I really feel strongly about such and such.
Well, you understand that, you recognize it, you say we can table it, we can park it, for a later date.
Or at least I'll park it,
And
right?
right, because it's kind of hard to have a two-person argument if only one person's arguing, right?
Yeah.
And then that person gets tired of it.
And listening doesn't mean you have to agree.
Exactly.
You can listen to somebody's concerns, and you may not agree, but you're listening. And you're learning more about how they come to their thoughts and feelings.
Since there's a lot of grief for many people during this time, how do you deal with that?
You know, I talk to a lot of patients and families about this. A lot of them are experiencing anticipatory grief. So they know a loss is coming, and so that grief response, they're starting to feel it, and a lot of the emotional reactions. And to be clear, a lot of people, many people grieve with their heads. They do a lot of thinking or ruminating or kind of this stressful thinking, overanalyzing, and some people grieve more with their hearts, and they do a lot of feeling. A lot of people do both. But what I recommend to them is to be really, you know, let their feelings come up. Try not to stuff them down. They'll come out eventually. So sometimes finding a quiet space where you can be tearful alone is helpful for others. Other people, they want to be with folks, but they're scared that they may burst into tears. And so it's always okay to let the host know at a party that you may leave early, and not to worry about you, or to just let them know you're having a difficult time, and it's always okay to leave.
Now, I think it has to be okay, too, to find that place where you can grieve and be all right with the grieving. To say, there isn't anything wrong with me that I feel grief at this moment.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
It's okay. And to further address the grief and the bereavement process, it might be that you want to honor that person that you've lost or that you're in the process of losing by giving something in their name. That way, you've turned your grief into something positive, more positive, and that you can remember later as the years approach that, oh, yes, I did lose this person, but in honor of them and their memory, I gave to this organization or I gave to that organization. So now I can think about this grieving period in a good way.
I really love that notion of honoring your loved one. We hear about that a lot in the grief groups we do at Mission Hospice, that people want their loved one to be mentioned. And oftentimes we don't bring it up because we think, oh, it'll make them sad, or we don't want to cause them any more suffering. But for most people, it's at the forefront of their mind, and they would like that person to be acknowledged in some way. And being really creative about that is wonderful. Some people will light a candle, or leave an empty chair, or make a toast, or tell a story, or cook a favorite dish in honor of that person and mention them, and they're not forgotten. And that is so important for people, just that acknowledgement.
Well, being asked about somebody you love is very healing.
Yes.
And being able to remember wonderful stories and memories.
What else might be healing?
Thinking about how we carry with us what the people we love have given us. The qualities, the learning, the stories.
Assuming that we've had a positive experience. Now, suppose we haven't had a positive experience. That might bring some difficulties and some grief in and of itself. So what would you say to that person who may not have had a positive experience?
You can say, what do you want to say to this person that has brought you this grief, that has brought you this not positive experience? What do you want to say? Do you want to write it in a letter? Maybe the letter won't be delivered, but that way it's cathartic. It's a way of cleansing yourself of it. It's a way of relieving it out of your mind and out of your heart, and you get it out there, and you're being heard. So
is that sufficient for really letting something go?
I've found in my experience that it has been very sufficient. It's been very effective. At first, the person says, well, if they're not going to get the letter, what's the use of writing it? The use of writing it is it gets out of you. You no longer rent space in your mind and your heart to that issue and to that negative thing that has happened to you.
Sometimes I think those feelings don't disappear immediately. One writes the letter and then maybe has to remind oneself constantly, it's over.
Yes.
It's gone.
Yes. It's a process.
Two of you were going to say something, Sharla.
Well,
Sharla.
I think accepting that there's light and shadow in all of us, and that our memories are going to have happy and less happy components, and that when we think of people that matter to us, whether they are with us now or have passed, it's part of doing honor and credit to them to look at the totality of who they are. And some of the people we care about didn't stay static. They evolved, they grew, they made mistakes, they learned from their mistakes. And we hopefully will grow and learn and make mistakes and learn from them. So accepting our own imperfections and the imperfections of the people we care about is part of life unfolding. And the holidays are simply punctuation points, just as certain stages in life are
What
punctuation
type of
points.
punctuation points? Commas, periods,
Semicolons.
parentheses. any punctuation mark,
any
one
of the
wants
above.
to,
Yeah.
even dots for continuing.
Dot, right.
You were going to say something,
Yeah.
Lucia.
I just think that this holiday time, it's so important to be gentle with yourself. And again, with the expectations, a lot of that is internal pressure that we put on ourselves. And it's coming from society, but we echo that within ourselves. There's a lot of shoulds, right? And I like to tell people, you don't want to should all over yourself, especially not during the holiday season.
Why? What's wrong with the should? I should do this, I should do that. Does that give one motivation and incentive?
Well, sometimes it can, sure, but it can also create just a lot of turmoil and strife.
If one can't follow through on the shoulds.
It just sort of goes into this angle of perfectionism that's unattainable and unhealthy. And so I think there needs to be this built-in flexibility. You know, another thing, along with the shoulds, a lot of times people want to do exactly the same thing year after year. They have these traditions, which are wonderful, and it's lovely to honor them. But it's okay to make new traditions. And so to incorporate some sense of flexibility where, you know, maybe you say, I really can't cook the big holiday meal and gather everything and chop all day long. Maybe today I'm going to order out and we'll have the family meal that way. And so you still honor the gathering and the people and the relationships, but it's not reduce the stress without the work. And another thing I just want to
suppose someone says, remember the other thing. But suppose one says, but we always do it this way. And you've always cooked the meal, and we've always gathered this way. Why can't we do it the same way?
For that reason, since you've always done it that way, let's introduce a new element, an element of change.
But that's not a part of our family tradition.
And that's where grief comes in. That's the adjustment,
and we
right,
have
to the
remember
reality.
to be kind to ourselves. Correct?
Children grow.
Be kind to ourselves. Take care of ourselves during this time of stress, and hurry up and get this done, and go buy the perfect gift, and make this appointment, and make that social appointment. We have to remember to take time for ourselves, maybe 15 minutes of just quiet reflection, of deep breathing, of just relaxing with no intentions, with no commitment, with no regulation, but just 15 minutes.
To say, it's all right. It's okay.
To relax.
Don't worry about it. Now, you were going to say
And
something.
it ties in so lovely with what you're saying. And I think that a lot of times we think we can only rest when everything's done. And we
Well,
just
isn't that a natural time to rest?
well, I actually
How do you rest when it's undone?
Well, that's what I advocate. Rest in the middle of things. Rest when you
Absolutely.
feel like your body is tired. Rest when you feel like you're getting sick. That's your body telling you, you really need to rest.
So who's going to do it?
You're going to do it later.
How is it going to get done?
You
It's
know
going
what?
to get done later. You're
It
going to
also-
pace
When?
yourself.
Well,
You're going to
Family
pace
is coming.
You're going to pace yourself. And if family comes sooner than expected, let family join in.
And help.
Exactly.
it's the delegation. It's the sharing of the load. One person can't do it alone. I like to tell people, don't move the refrigerator by yourself. And it's the same with the holidays.
Exactly.
Everyone needs to do their piece, and children can help out, and they actually really enjoy that. And
Make it the big refrigerator. I'm thinking they're tabletops.
Well, and if you think about music as rests between the notes.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes the music.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes. And
So
it's
The
healing.
pauses.
The rhythms and the pauses are just as important as the notes.
More tips. More things to share.
Well, I have one. I have a tip. Be realistic. Be realistic about your expectation. If you know that there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G to get done, and you only have ABC time to do it in, be realistic, be kind to yourself, and say, okay, maybe I will not be able to get A, B, C, D, E, F, G done in ABC time, so I will have to compromise. I will take the time to do the A and the B and C, and I will call on someone else to do the D, E, F, G, or
And
whatever.
if they say, I don't have time,
Then
I'm not
I will
able to
call
help.
on another, because there's always someone out there willing,
Okay.
to join in and help you.
And I'm thinking if you can't find that willing person, then maybe you can say it just won't get done. It's
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
I've done the very best that I can,
Exactly.
and I'm going to let it be all right.
And another tip that I use in my personal life, it's sort of a mantra, and you can actually think of these things when you're not feeling stressed and overwhelmed. It's easier to think of them.
Yes.
But to come up with like a mantra or something you can tell yourself, for me, when I'm feeling really stressed out, my heart's racing, and I can, have these awful feelings, I tell myself, this moment is as it is, and I can relax. This moment is as it is, and I can relax. And I keep repeating that in my head. Sometimes I'll say it out loud, but I'll take some deep breaths, and that really helps, because those emotions, like we were talking about, they last about 90 seconds. And the word emotion, it means to move through. So it's not something you're stuck in. You keep moving through. And so whatever it is, you let it come up, and it goes. And sometimes you can have mixed emotions, especially in grief. And we were talking a little bit about that with, you can feel deep sorrow and yearning and missing. You can also, it's okay, and you kind of need to give yourself permission to do this, but give yourself permission to feel joy and to feel light and to experience, some lightness
And I
in your
would
life.
think you're reminding me of a favorite expression of mine, that this too will pass,
Yes.
whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And the grief will pass. But then to remind oneself, okay, I'm very happy now, but I have to realize that this happiness might not last, that the downs will come.
Live in the moment.
And the happiness, and so it's...
Yes, you're doing the motion of a wave. Which
Live
is,
in the moment.
Right.
Live in the moment. Enjoy the moment.
Whatever it is.
Don't think about the future, but enjoy
Now,
that
wait a
moment.
moment. When we talk about living in the moment and enjoying, appreciating that moment, even if it's a moment of sadness,
Right.
Appreciate the moment.
Yeah.
to say
in the
it's
moment.
okay, whatever
Because it's not
it
going to be
is
forever.
right. Now, is everything okay? Is every feeling okay?
Yes.
Every
If the
feeling
feeling
is
doesn't
okay?
bring harm to anyone else, and it doesn't degrade anyone else, and it doesn't destroy anyone else's happiness and peace, it's okay.
Some feelings we have more comfort with than others. None of us enjoy feeling shame or guilt. And the holidays can certainly evoke shame and guilt.
Yes.
Anger is
For what has not been
done,
done.
or what not meeting somebody else's expectations or not meeting your own. Anger is an uncomfortable and tiring emotion, but sometimes there are good reasons to feel anger, as long as you're allowed to move and not stay stuck with it. Also, very simple things like getting enough rest, getting enough time to move,
Take care of yourself.
eating food that's nourishing at a time when there's lots of alcohol, lots of calories, lots
Sugar,
of
yep.
intensity around. Very simple things like that apply all the year round, apply equally at the
I understand
holidays.
sometimes just drinking some water
Yeah.
is very helpful.
Yeah.
Because the body tends to get dehydrated, and when
Yes.
it's dehydrated, you can feel sad or depressed.
Oh, yeah.
So when you talk about nourishment, it's very important.
Being hydrated. So
Yes.
Can I just share?
But of course.
I also think it's just so important to get a little bit perspective on the holidays and remember what the true meaning is, which is different for different people. But
Yes.
for a lot of cultures, the holidays is really about the solstice, which is happening
Yes.
very soon. And it's remembering that in these dark days, every day after the solstice, there will be a little more light.
The coming of winter. And
Yes.
every day after the solstice, you
Light
were
grows,
saying
yeah.
it gets what?
Better.
The
Lighter,
days get longer.
They get longer, there's
Brighter.
there's hope. That's what it's about.
Yes.
possibility.
And that's represented by the light, because I would ordinarily add So the days are getting longer and it's getting lighter, so what?
And we have something to look forward to in our darkest hours.
Well, I was thinking too, there's something called sad, where when it's darker, we are more inclined to feel more depressed, and it's the sunshine
Yes, it is.
and the lengthening of the days
Yes.
that can be uplifting.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's interesting. I didn't think about that in terms of winter.
I think there's no coincidence why we have all these holidays at this time of year.
Because it's so dark.
Yes.
And
it's about
dreary.
bringing the light in. Yes.
It's the festival of light.
Yes.
And how do you get people to appreciate that when there is all of the holidays celebrations and all of the brightness, and they may not feel it on the inside?
Bringing a sense of optimism, which is I write about here in my 7 Best Steps to Reduce Life Stress. One of the steps that I am so forceful about is optimism.
Optimists supposedly live longer.
I think so. Statistically, they've shown that people that have an optimistic, uplifting point of
Well,
view.
that reminds me of failure and how people can feel worthless if they think of themselves as a failure or if they haven't achieved something that they've wanted. So what would you?
Well, failing is just a step before success.
And each failure brings you closer
And closer to success.
Right. Every experiment gives you information for what's going to come next.
And also this whole sense of failure, I mean, this gets into shame, which we all have, but it's, everybody has worth and value. It's their birthright. I think a lot of what we do as clinicians and therapists is reminding people of that and reflecting that back to them.
We also try to get beyond what's wrong with you to what's happened to you. And
Absolutely.
what's happened to you may include painful things and wonderful things.
And also, I'm thinking, what's right with you?
And what's right with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is everybody has worth, everybody has dignity, everybody has value, and that's what's right with all of us, regardless of any particular circumstance in our lives. So that's certainly something to celebrate.
Absolutely.
More important perhaps than the holidays. We have a lot to celebrate.
We do.
In terms of our human worth and value.
And community.
And community.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, we'll have to end on that note. I'd like to thank you so much for sharing the community that we've had right here and the joy. And I'd certainly like to thank our viewers for watching. Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank
It's been a
you.
pleasure.
We can certainly have a sense of joy, can't we?